I've got 4 action steps that I'm sharing on today's episode on how you can become more magnetic, how you can really begin doing that today. Welcome to your emotional makeover. Things your mother never told you because no one ever told her. I'm your host, Dr. Amanda Hansen. This is where you reimagine womanhood. Let us begin. I'm sure many of you have now heard about my live event in November, Magnetic. And it is so important to me to help women learn how to live more magnetic lives. Because the reality is every single one of us was at some point connected to that magnificence within us. And then as life happened and most young women started to realize that there were so many expectations on them, whether it was from their religion, whether it was their culture, the society, their family at large, toxic beauty culture even has expectations on women. And as we start to bathe in all of that, we get further removed, consciously or unconsciously, from our magnificence. And then it's really hard as a woman to feel magnetic or to give off that magnetizing energy when you are second guessing yourself around every corner, when you're not even actually sure if you can share your thoughts, your opinions, when you're not even sure if your body has the right to be in spaces and places and in particular outfits. So I think it's really crucial for us to constantly be looking at how can we in our daily lives begin to become more magnetic versions of ourselves. And that takes a level of consciousness. If you have been living your life on more or less automatic pilot, which I find out is the average woman who comes to my world, has been living, she probably thinks to some level with agency in her life, and to some extent, possibly. But what I find is that the conditioning is so profoundly deep. It is pumping inside of the bloodstream. And until we start doing this work and diving deep and becoming more and more conscious to our lives, only then can you really begin to activate your magnetism. So today I thought wouldn't it be fun to just share 4 fairly simple ways that you can begin to access that more magnetic version of you. And for those of you who have already bought your ticket and who are coming to Magnetic, you can begin these baby steps right now so that by the time you show up in that room with that incredible energy and all that we will be doing together for those 2 days, you will have already changed the energy and the story around your magnificence, even if only 1%. 1 is better than not at all. So some of the really helpful, and I hope you find to be enjoyable ways to, what I want to say is this work gets to be really playful. The work in my world, well, it is deeply rooted. It is serious. It is ancient. It is profound. It allows for a transformation and a liberation that women tell me 20 years of therapy didn't even scratch the surface of. And I know that to be true for my own life and all of the clients I've been working with over the past 2.5 decades. But I know that to be true because this isn't being taught elsewhere. I don't see the average practitioner talking to women or even able to guide them to the places that I'm able to guide them because they're not even doing it in their own lives. And particularly if it is a male therapist, he certainly is not going to be able to take a woman to places within the feminine if he has never lived the experience of being a woman in the world. You can understand and have great compassion and wonderful skill sets, but there is an extent to which you can walk somebody if the work you're wanting to do is really rooting into the feminine consciousness and the matriarchal consciousness of your life to optimize it and make it more beautiful. To do so, we really need female leaders who have done that depth and that work and that journey for a very long time for themselves. Only then will they have the courage and the bravery to take you there. So let me give you some fairly simple things that you can begin to do, but this is going to require a level of consciousness to your life and you really being an active participant and noticing your patterns and your behaviors. So one of the very first ones I want us to think about and consider is this idea of being able to source from within. Now, I know many of you listened to the Princess to Queen episode. It was one of the ones that so much feedback came in on, and you had so much to say, and it was really mind-blowing for many of you. And I have a future upcoming course that is going to cover that really, really deeply in depth in every single aspect of your life and how to walk that bridge from the princess who is constantly in seeking and needing energy and into the queen who is so self-resourced in a way that is absolutely liberating. But what I want us to consider is as you learn to source from within, here's what I'm proposing you can do. So if, for example, you are really thinking about or missing or desiring or dreaming about an ex, and you have such a temptation to pick up that phone, to call them, to text them, to reconnect, to reach out, even if you know they are absolutely not a healthy match for you. Even if you know in your cerebral brain that logically it was a fairly unfulfilling relationship, possibly even a toxic relationship. But you have that desire. You just want to pick up the phone. You want to reach out. You want to connect. This would be one example of sourcing from within. What I would ask you to then do is to be conscious of that desire to reach out, not just be on automatic pilot, not have the feeling and the thought, grab the phone and do the thing, but to have that moment where you pause. So you've had that feeling, you've had that desire. There's that momentary pause where you recognize that you were about to reach out. You were about to reconnect with that person. In that moment, in that awareness, what I would suggest you do is pause, notice that, and then ask yourself, okay, I notice you're wanting to reach out to this person, and I'm wondering what that's about. I'm wondering, and here's the deeper layer of questioning, what it is that I'm wanting to feel. What am I needing right now? What am I wanting to feel? What am I needing? What do I believe could happen? But the most important question that you are sourcing for, you are searching and asking yourself within is, what do I actually need? So it's not really to connect with that person. There's a deeper need underneath. There's a deeper desire that lives within you. Maybe it's to be seen. Maybe it's to feel cared for. Maybe it's to feel more feminine. Maybe it's to feel desired. So as you source from within, your job then is to stop the behavior of going to the predictable thing you've always done, grab the phone and text the person. It's to notice that, to pause, to then drop in and ask yourself, what is it that needs to be met right now? What am I wanting? What am I needing? What am I desiring? Then once you get clear on what that thing is, you then get to give yourself that, even if it's just 1%. So if you're desiring to be wanted by this person, then if the desire of wanting to be wanted, you then meet that by 1% by sourcing the want within yourself. So then your work is, how do I want myself? Rather than constantly take myself out to other people, how can I learn to want me? How can I learn to crave me, to desire me? What can I do right now, just 1% more, that will allow me to feel that want of myself? And then you get to decide what that looks like. And that will be very individual and unique for everyone. For some people, it's just, I want to feel beautiful. I want to feel desired. I want to feel seen. And then you get to give that to yourself. How do you see yourself? How do you desire yourself? How do you want yourself? How do you become more ravenous for yourself? That can never come from a place of going outside of yourself. That always and only comes from a place of within. And maybe it's simply, I'm going to make myself a really nourishing meal right now. I'm going to want myself so much that I'm going to prepare and nourish my body with a beautiful meal. I am going to dim the lights, just put some candles around the room. And I am going to dance in front of a mirror, and I'm going to turn myself on. I'm going to want myself. I'm going to desire and be ravenous for myself, rather than thinking I need to take myself out into the world to feel that thing, especially into a place or a space that you know is a dead end and never actually ends up with the result you so desire. So as you source from within and you learn to do this over and over and over, what actually happens is you begin to layer and build the muscle of sourcing from within. This is how you become more magnetic, because you are not a frenetic, desperate energy running around seeking for someone to come towards you, to pay attention to, because in that energy, it is often the first warm body that comes along that feels good enough. And I see women do this over and over again, settling and settling for places and spaces that, had they been nourished from within, it would have been an insult to even think that entertaining the idea of that person or that relationship would have ever been enough. So it is always our job to fill up and to nourish from within. And if you do that every time, when you notice you're reaching for something outside of yourself that you know ultimately isn't actually good for you, whether it's that dead end relationship, whether it's a bottle of wine, whether it's another stack of cookies, whether it is continuing to shop online excessively, whether it is pornography, whether it is scrolling unconsciously on your phone or on Netflix, binge watching more television shows, whatever it is, being able to go within and ask yourself, first you catch the behavior like, oh, there I go again, because it's just a habit. It's just a habit that has been so well oiled, and you haven't learned another way, a more elevated tool, that you just keep reaching for that one because it's the neural pathway that's been built. It's the easy go-to, but it doesn't create any long-term sustainable changes in your life. So you ask yourself in that moment, okay, I want to reach for that bottle of wine. Why do I want that wine? What is the need underneath? What do I actually really need? I need to feel relaxed. I need to not think about all these things that are stressing me out. And then that 1% is, how else can I do that without reaching for this bottle of wine, which never actually ends in a more beautiful life? And so practicing those new techniques, those new ways eventually expand you, because that 1% every time, after 100 times, it's 100% more of you sourcing from within. And that is part of what will make you so incredibly magnetic, because you are not an energetic in the world who is leeching off of others and feeling this energy of like, I need to perform and act and contort in a certain way because I don't want to be rejected. I want to feel worthy. I want to feel like I belong. Those things start to fade away when you already confirm all of those things from within. So then when you walk into relationships, whether with friends, lovers, and places of business, you show up in such a profoundly grounded energy, that queen energy that is so magnetic and so electrifying and such clean energy to be in relationship with, that then doors open for you that you could have never even imagined. That is our internal job, to source more from within. Another incredible way to become more magnetic as a woman is going to sound very simple, but the work that lives inside of this has profound effects. And it is this: as a woman, to be able to see and revere and celebrate and be in awe of every aspect of your body, the way you are with Mother Nature, the way you are with the moon, with the sunsets, with the waves splashing on the ocean and on the shore, with the mountains and the forests and the bark on the tree, every little creature that is crawling on the ground, the petals of the flowers as they open, the blades of grass, the seashells, the way you are in awe and you revere Mother Nature, and you don't look at it saying, gosh, if it just had a little bit more smoothness in this one area, it would be perfect. When you begin to revere your body and notice every single thing as simply textures, as patterns, as glorious celebrations of all it has withstood, when you begin to connect and notice that your body is a work of art just like Mother Nature, you will become more magnetic. That magnetism that will draw people towards you because you are being in this body, in this temple, with such reverence, with such a belief of sacredness and this awe, in the same way that you look at an incredible sunrise or sunset, or birds flying in the sky, or when you lay on your back and you look at the patterns of the clouds as they pass through the sky. When you begin to see your body in every aspect in that way, whether it is stretch marks, whether it is cellulite, whether it is sunspots, whether it is aging, if it is wrinkles, if it is misaligned breasts, if it is anything and everything that you have berated yourself for, when you can walk across that bridge and you lay down the sword of beratement and you pick up this beautiful, enveloped feeling that you put onto yourself of reverence and majesty, you will become an incredibly magnetic force, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. For other women to even be in the presence of a woman who doesn't berate herself, to be standing next to a woman who speaks so highly of her body and everyone else and their bodies, is a healing art in and of itself, in a world that has made us completely afraid of being human as women. So that's another epic, incredible, albeit at times very difficult practice. But over time, just like learning to source from within, you will begin to layer this practice. And eventually you will look over your shoulder and think, how did I ever berate this incredible body? This is how I live. This is how I exist in my body. For the past 15 years with so much profound awe for the miracle of it. So incredibly wildly in love at every aspect and every change. It's a magnetic energy that is absolutely liberating and so powerful for those who get to come into contact with you. Another practice to help you move into more magnificence and magnetic energy within is your ability to start holding all of your emotions. Not just the love and light, not just the live, laugh, love, all of those phrases that we see in the Target or home goods stores, but your ability to sit with, to commune with, to usher in, to midwife your rage – is a profound, and life-changing act of being a woman. Particularly as women, we have been conditioned to be pleasing, to be happy, to be filled with gratitude, to wish for or hope for a better outcome, but not to ever feel upset for what has happened, to not dwell on it, to not give it too much energy, to just cover up and move on. Stop talking about it. Stop bringing it back up. So when we have been gaslit for so long and afraid of our own anger, afraid of our own rage, you can understand how you're not living as this full emotional range of a human being. You're only living a portion of you. And as we know, there cannot be light without darkness. So if you are not able to hold space for, commune with, and alchemize your darkness, you absolutely cannot live a full-fledged life. You cannot experience rapture and ecstasy and life-changing orgasm if you cannot sit with your shadows and your darkness and your rage. If you are only able to access this middle ground of emotion, of pleasantries, you're living a very emotionally stunted life because you are not stretching out to the left and to the right and to the expansiveness of human emotion. So the extent to which you can feel your rupture, your pain, your anger, your rage is the extent to which you can feel your rapture. I had a video on this the other day on Instagram, and oh my gosh, there are women who just have such a hard time. And they just want to completely bypass that being able to commune with rage is even an ideology. They see like anger as a wasted energy, which is absolutely not the case. As a matter of fact, it is the complete and total opposite. For the women I have worked with for the past 2.5 decades, it is through their rage they found their greatest answers and their greatest liberation. But when we keep women away from that and accessing it, we keep them away from their power. And there's a plan. There's a reason for all of that. When you begin to understand that your rage is simply unalchemized passion, and by that I mean when you feel rage, when you feel anger, it is because the opposite of the outcome you longed for happened. So for example, when I work with women who have had sexual trauma, and they have not had a place until working with me to feel the depths of that guttural rage. And they have suppressed it and they have pushed it down and it has ravaged them from the inside out. When I share with them that that rage was simply because you had wished that that uncle, rather than do what he did to your body and steal your innocence as a little girl, rather than that, you wished he would have put you on his lap and read you books. You wish he would have taken you to the park and taught you about the ladybugs. That's why you feel rage, because what you really long for and what you really wish could have happened, the complete and total opposite of that happened. And that's why you feel rage. Rage is unalchemized passion for an outcome that you wish could have been, but was so far from ever happening. And if we don't allow women spaces to access their rage, we cut off a huge portion of their human experience. So if you want to become a more magnetic woman, you go in to the places of rage and heartbreak and anger, and you allow them to be. And you allow yourself to take that journey and turn it into an alchemical reimagining, where it then becomes the renewable energy for the version of you that you are stepping into, without all of that heaviness, without all of that trauma, without all of that baggage. But it will always be there until you learn to work with it. So to become a more magnetic woman, you understand that that emotional hygiene and that ability to move with those emotions and those darknesses and those shadows and those places that you have pushed down and away because somebody told you you would never be able to handle it. When you allow yourself space for them, you allow a version of you to blossom that is unexplainable. Some of the most magnetic women I know are women who are not afraid of their rage and who are not afraid of their anger and allow sacred, beautiful space for it. So again, another practice that is so, so important for us as we become more magnetic women. And another piece that I want to share with you, our fourth piece around how can I become more magnetic? What can I work on over these next couple of weeks or next couple of months until the magnetic event? It is beginning to get underneath the layers of conditioning you live with. So first, it's going to require you to become aware of the conditioning you live with. My self-love program has 25 short videos and modules and an accompanying workbook. And it has an entire module on helping you understand the conditioning by which you are living by, most of which is probably unconscious and happening on automatic pilot. But my self-love program helps you to unearth, kind of till that soil, unearth that unconscious programming so that you can sit with it and recognize it. And then only once we recognize it, we can decide how we want to rewrite it, what we want to make it mean, and what parts of it we want to reabsorb into our lives, because those are the narratives that are running your life in the background. So not unearthing them doesn't mean that they're controlling you in an unconscious background way. And you're going through the motions, making decisions about your life, not even aware of the driving force and the driving messages. So a big part of the work is really starting to understand, what unconscious messaging am I living my life by? And as you begin to bring those to the surface, let's say you pick one of them. Let's say one of the beliefs you've been living your life by is that a woman's life is not really valuable or very important or worthy after the age of 50. She's like completely irrelevant and it really doesn't even matter anymore. Like she may as well just be put aside, cast aside, or not even a part of the world anymore, because it really doesn't matter physically, sexually, in the world of business, in the world of thought leadership. If that is something that you believe and you're running your life with this terror of age in the background, you can then start to look at all the ways that affects how you live your life, the decisions you make, the relationships you choose, the career you choose, the toxic beauty culture you subscribe to. And you can then decide, how is having this belief helpful for me? How does this actually help my life? And if you come to the conclusion, well, in fact, it doesn't really help my life at all that much. It's not very sacred. It has me feeling quite desperate. It has me doing all kinds of toxic things to myself and my body that's probably poisoning me and maybe giving me autoimmune disease or cancer. So in fact, I'm not sure this is the most beautiful belief I could hold on to. When you look at, where did that conditioning come from? Like, how did I get to this place where I've absorbed such a toxic message that I actually have allowed it to run in the background of my life? And then your job is to decide, do I want to rewrite a more beautiful narrative in place of that one that is actually deeply disturbing? Or do I want to continue allowing that conditioning to run the show for me? And trust me, many women choose that. Many women choose for that very outdated, very toxic, deeply disturbing conditioning to continue to run their life because they are terrified of the level of work that it would require to step outside of that. Many women prefer to stay unconscious. It feels easier. So if you're not one of those women, and I know that if you've bought a ticket to Magnetic, or if you're considering coming to Magnetic, you're probably not one of those women, because you know that life gets to actually be so much more incredible and beautiful. And womanhood is supposed to feel like a work of art and not the level of suffering and contorting that we have been under for so long. And so you know that being able to examine that conditioning and rewrite something more beautiful for your life that will actually be in service to your life is a way a direct way to become more magnetic. So for me, if I really had this belief that any woman over 50 is disposable, unworthy, irrelevant, I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing right now. I wouldn't be reaching tens of millions of women every single month. Hundreds of millions of women now worldwide have received my message because I decided, while the world conditioned me to believe that a woman over a certain age was irrelevant, I decided to rewrite a new narrative. I decided that I was actually going to peel off that conditioning, even though it had been passed down to me by family and by world culture. I decided to believe, as a matter of fact, the full opposite is true. I believe that women don't even hit the peak, the prime. They don't even step into it until they're in their 50s and beyond, because only then have you accumulated so much wisdom and such an ability to speak your mind that you really don't care what anybody else thinks. So I then was able to completely release that layer of conditioning, then rewrite the narrative by which I live my life and is the informative space by which most decisions are made. Oh yeah, a woman over 50, of course she's worthy. Of course she's relevant. Of course what she has to share with the world matters. And from that place, I get to operate my life. And that makes us more magnetic. So we become more magnetic when we learn to remove layers of conditioning, when we learn how to source from within, when we learn to revere our bodies as Mother Nature, as the miracles that they are, and when we learn to commune with our rage. These are 4 practices that you can use in your daily life, and you can subscribe to the 1% rule for each of them, just 1% more. And allow yourself to be an observation of how that starts to feel inside of your body, how things begin to change in your life, what you begin to attract through those new energetics. Please let me know. Send me a message. I would be so delighted to hear from you as you start to work through these 4 action items in becoming a more magnetic woman. And if you really want to take it to an entirely new level, if you want to immerse yourself in that energy of becoming the most magnetic version of you, I strongly encourage you to join us in November, where the environment will be such that the expansion that you will be immersed in will be a life-changing energy that is not offered anywhere else on this level, to this depth, with this kind of leadership for women anywhere in the world. I will see you in November. And for those of you who live too far in the world, who feel that it cannot happen for you, I want you to allow yourself to examine even that conditioning, even that limiting belief, and ask yourself, who do I have to become? What level of conditioning do I have to remove to get myself in that room for a life-changing experience that will define the way the rest of my life as a woman goes? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback. Message me on Instagram or write a review. And of course, if you know a woman who could benefit from this episode, please share it with her, because it can heal her life. And that's what sisters do. Love always, Dr. Amanda.